Utah will elect a new governor this year. Silicon Slopes hosted a gubernatorial debate at Silicon Slopes Tech Summit 2020. We asked the candidates where they stand on some of the most pressing issues in Utah. We wanted to know their vision for Utah, where they stand on issues that matter most to all Utahns, and we wanted to talk about the future of this great state. Here are some highlights from the Silicon Slopes gubernatorial debate.
We need a political outsider. We need politically unentangled leadership to face some of the growth issues that we're facing in our state.
I hear you, but
youth wellness.
Yeah, no, youth wellness. Like our suicide rate is top 3 in the nation for youth suicide. It's the leading cause of death for kids aged 10 to 17. LGBTQ youth are dying, Jeff. What's the responsibility of the next governor?
Statistics in Utah right now, we rank 48th per capita for the number of mental health professionals that work with youth. 48th in the country. That is unacceptable. We need to do all that we can to ensure that we are talking about youth wellness, mental illness, and of course, suicide in our culture. It's not even, thank you. It's not as much about legislation as much as it is about leadership and focus. Under a Birmingham administration, this would be a heavy focus of mine.
Clint, can I chime in on that
Please.
real quick? You know, one of the things that's interesting is a lot of us have family members who have struggled. I personally have one of my own children who has struggled with mental health, and it is devastating. And we've got to make sure we've got resources, but I think even more importantly, we've got to figure out what are these underlying issues that are causing it. It's not enough to just bring ambulances to the bottom of a mountain when people keep falling off. We've got to put a fence around the top. And we've got to figure out what is causing this and what's the underlying issue. And it's such an important issue, but breaking the stigma, being willing to talk about it when you've struggled or you've had a family member struggles is so key.
Do developers have undue influence in the state of Utah?
That's a big question, and to the degree that they do, we need to address it. But when it comes to affordable housing, Clint, we've seen rapidly rising real estate costs and rapidly rising construction costs. And that had to do with a lot of the tariffs that got put in place, and the demand for labor is at an all-time low. And so when you have expensive land, you don't have enough labor to build, and you have these rising, rapidly escalating costs of construction, it's the recipe for an affordable housing crisis. And that's what we have in this state. But with the right attention, and I know this from my business, having built a successful business and taken on these problems as a business person, not somebody from government, I can tell you right now that if you focus on that issue with good, solid leadership, and you go to the local municipalities and you work with them hand in hand to solve this problem, I know the people of Utah. They want to do the right thing. They will do the right thing, but we need more leadership on this issue. We don't need to legislate it. We don't need to mandate it. We just got to get out there and create a solution.
Thank you.
Clint, I gotta jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
I concur with everything that was just said, but we are being very myopic in here when we talk about the struggles we're seeing with congestion failure and scarcity of housing and clean air. We're talking only about the Wasatch Front. If we had our community leaders, people that live in rural Utah, they wouldn't understand a word of what was just described. I will tell you, we know what the relief valve for the over-congestion of the Wasatch Front is. Not having our emerging workforce have to leave their communities because there is not a single job to be found where they live, okay? If we want affordable housing, you can subsidize it all day. I will tell you, if we bring the infrastructure, if we bring economic opportunities to around this state, you don't see people leaving their communities to arrive at the Wasatch Front. If my daughter can't afford, when she's finished with college, to live here because the housing costs are so high, because the cost of living is prohibitive, I don't want her to leave the state. I would love her to find opportunities around this whole state. You want to deal with congestion and all the issues and development and housing? We've got to invest in this whole state and the economic prosperity of more than just the Wasatch Front.
As an experienced diplomat, do you believe his call with the Ukrainian president was as perfect as he claims?
What's that?
Do you believe his call with the Ukrainian president was as perfect as he claims?
Listen, no
You're
call.
an experienced diplomat. You've been ambassador to China, ambassador to Russia.
No call with any head of state goes well, but if you were to unearth presidential calls going all the way back to the invention of the telephone, and if you were to out conversations with foreign leaders, you would find that a whole lot of them were probably questionable in some way or another. The president doesn't speak the language of politics. He doesn't speak the language of policymakers. He's a developer from New York City. He has a blunt style. He talks to people that way. And I think that's just the way that the conversation was carried out.
So you think the call was fine?
Whether it was fine or not, the call happened. Did anything happen as a result of the call? No. The call happened. What I object to is this. The nonsense in Washington, the circus-like atmosphere that has been created, all of it taking the air out of D.C. where nothing gets done. No transportation bills, things that would actually impact us here. Why don't we do this, Clint? Why don't we actually wait until the next presidential election, which is just a few months away, and let the American people decide, as opposed to all these members of Congress who have created a total embarrassment for us?
Spencer, you've been critical of President Trump. You've been critical of President Trump in the past. Do you support him for re-election?
I do. This answer that was given is a very good answer. 2016 was the hardest election for me of my life. I was very critical of the president. I do not like the divisiveness. We've talked a little bit about that already. I'm a Republican, and he is running as the president of our party. I've referred to Washington, D.C. as a dumpster fire, which is not fair to dumpster fires. It is such a disaster back there. I don't approve of everything he's done. I've been very outspoken on that. We need a governor who is willing to be honest with themselves. That being said, there are some really good things that are happening in our country right now. I also think because of what's happening in Washington, D.C., I actually believe he's going to win. And so we do support him. He's going to be elected. The state of Utah is going to vote for him. That doesn't mean we have to agree with everything that he does, but it is important that we have a governor. And that's what we've seen with Governor Herbert. Look, there are a lot of people on this stage and Republicans in Utah. Remember, when President Trump ran for the Republican nomination in Utah, just Republicans, he finished third with only 8% of the vote. There were only 3 people left in the race at that time. Right? So his style of politics is not the Utah Republican style of politics, right? We just have to understand that and accept that, and in a very practical way, understand what that means for the country going forward. Certainly what we've seen in the debates on the Democratic side, it's really scary to me. If you want to see a great recession, there are several people running on the other side that will get us into that recession as quickly as possible with the way that they're talking about policy moving forward. We need a president who won't allow that to happen, and we have that president right now. Again, doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, doesn't mean I agree with the way he does it, but my job as the governor of Utah, just like we've done in the Cox-Herbert administration, is to work together with the administration to accomplish the things that are important for the people of the state of Utah. I'm not a senator, I'm not a member of Congress, I'm running for governor of this state, and I'm going to work with whoever our president is to make sure that Utah has the most success, and right now that's President Trump.
The election is still a ways out. I'd encourage you to get involved, learn more about these candidates and all the candidates running for governor, and make a choice about the future of Utah.